Okay, so today's financial focus is titled 5 Years from Retirement, Do This Now. So I got a lot of great responses last week about the 55 years old, question mark, do this now. So I put together a little do this now series. So now this year or this week, we're going to talk about 5 years out. What should you be doing? Then we're going to say 2 years out next week. What should you be doing? And the next video after that, because that's not going to be next week. I have a vacation built in there, but the next time I see you after that second one, we are going to talk about 1 year from retirement, what you should be doing to prepare. But today we're going to focus on 5 years. You're 5 years out from retirement. If your normal retirement age is 65, well, then you're 60 years old. If your retirement age is 60, then you're 55 years old, and you can go back to the video that we did last week. If your retirement age is 70, you're 65, and you see it doesn't really matter what age. There's some nuances there depending on your age. But if you're 5 years out from retirement, there are some things you should be doing. So let's get into the details. Join me on my whiteboard. Here we are. And this is, again, our financial focus. So the first thing you should do, if you are, in fact, 60 years old, or if you didn't already watch the age 55-year-old video, watch 55 years old video, go back and watch that, because I'm going to do a short recap, but I'm not going to go into all the details that I talked about in that video. I'm going to hit the bullet points, because some of you won't go back and watch that video. You should. Just watch the financial. It was called the Financial 15 at the time. It's a shorter segment. It was broken down. No, we kept it one. You can find it. Watch that video. But for a recap, start or continue to do these things. First is right here. Pay attention to details. Start paying attention to details. If you haven't done that already, hopefully you've already started this if you're 5 years to retirement. But if you haven't, it's okay. Start paying attention to those details. Start paying attention to your expenses. Track it on a spreadsheet. There's some good programs. If you want an expense spreadsheet that we use, reach out to us. questions@attleborowealth.com. Reach out to us. Say, hey, could you send me that expense sheet that you use? I'm happy to send it to you. Track your expenses. Now, it's interesting. We work with a lot of engineers. Many of you heard me talk about this before. I used to say, I don't know why. It used to be widows that would come to us, and now it's engineers. And we don't market to engineers. We don't focus on engineers. It's just engineers find us and end up working with us. And then a few years ago, I hired a coach, and I said that same thing to the coach. I don't know why, but the coach said to me, I know exactly why engineers work with your team, because you have processes and checklists and different things that you go through that they understand. These folks who think like engineers, very, very methodical and strategic and process oriented, understand our process. So, but I talk about that because many folks will come to us and say, Mark, or Emily or team, I've been tracking my expenses for the last 35 years. I know exactly what we spend. I know exactly what we're going to need to spend in retirement. But almost always, can't think of an exception, almost always we identify something that they weren't considering. So track your expenses and have your foundation. Start paying attention to your investments. Your investments might be all over the place. You might have a 401k here, a 401k there, an IRA over here, and an IRA at these custodians, and maybe you worked with a financial professional and they moved around, and you've got different things at different places. I'm not going to say it's not unusual. It's unusual for folks to come in that have everything in one place. Not keeping your eggs all in one basket does not mean having things all over the place at different custodians, Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, whomever, Merrill Lynch. That's not putting your eggs all in one basket or keeping your eggs out of one basket, however you want to say it. That's just not being able to put your arms around stuff. Not putting all your eggs in one basket is probably a good investment theory, but custodial theory. A custodian is Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. Now, they also happen to offer investments, but I'm talking the people that hold your funds and report your statements and your tax documents and things like that. Get your arms around that. And if you need to keep it at different places, sometimes you have to keep your 401k exactly where it is. And if you're under 60, you probably do, and you're still working there. But once you hit 59 and a half, and if you're 5 years from retirement and you're 59 and a half, one of the things that you can consider is rolling that money into an IRA. There are considerations to take into account, and you should discuss those specifically with your financial advisor, financial planner. But it may be something you want to do to help get your arms around all of your investments and get on track for it. So pay attention to the details of your investments, where they are, what they're invested in, and how they fit into your financial plan. Contributions. Make sure you're contributing. Make sure that you're maximizing your 401k if it makes sense for you. Sometimes if you don't get a match, it doesn't make sense. If you have a Roth 401k, it probably makes sense to put as much as you can in there. It depends on, of course, your individual situation. But you want your contributions, whether they're into your regular investment brokerage account or whether you're into your retirement accounts, whatever is appropriate for you, you want it automated. I have a certain amount that comes out of my checking account that goes into my investment account every month. I have a certain amount that goes into my HSA every month. I have a certain amount that goes in my 401k every single pay period. That's the way to make it. Make sure that it happens, because even me, I'll forget. I'll get tied up in business. Like, geez, I didn't move my money over to my investment account last month, and then I move it over, and then I have to invest it. Maybe I'm a week or two behind, or sometimes a month behind. That's no good. So I set it up automatically. It comes right out of my checking account, and automatically. It probably makes sense for you to consider that as well. Tax category. Pay attention to those tax categories, where your investments live. We've got the taxable bucket, the tax deferred bucket, and the tax advantaged or tax free bucket. Advantaged. So all investments fit in one of these buckets. No kidding. You can't stump me on that. I'm just going to fix this. Just hold on. Let me fix that, because that's going to drive me bananas. So tax deferred are your IRAs. We're talking about tax deferred. These are your traditional IRAs, 401ks, 403b plans, simple IRAs, SEP, traditional IRAs. Tax advantages are Roth, anything Roth, and some properly structured cash value life insurance. My friend David McKnight calls these life insurance retirement plans sometimes. But these are all items that you're never going to pay tax on, again, as long as they're qualified distributions. Taxable are your brokerage accounts, your mutual funds, your things that sit outside of the IRA that you get 1099s for every year for dividends, interest, and whatnot. So dividends, interest, gains, short-term gains, long-term gains, etc. So you got to know where your investments fit in these buckets. So where is your money? If you've got most of your money, like most people, in these buckets here, you probably want to plan to shift over to the tax-free or tax advantage bucket, because you'll never pay tax on those things again. So, but if you don't know what your tax categories are, what happens is you're suddenly at 65 years old, or you're suddenly retired, and then you're trying to fix it. At 5 years out, you still have some runway where you can make some adjustments before you retire. Doesn't mean it's too late if you're suddenly retired, but it just means, obviously, the more time you have. I always say, nobody sat across the table or across the camera from me and said, well, geez, Mark, I wish I would have waited 10 years to do this. It's always the other way. I wish I would have known about this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it is for them. But you don't want to wait. You want to understand these things. So understand your investments, understand your contributions, get your contributions going. If you're not already doing it, automate it, maybe increase it if it works for you. Understand those tax categories, vitally important. Get your team together. If you don't already have your team together, get that team together. You want a CFP. I got it. I did it all over here for you already. You want a CFP who is, and your financial advisor should be a CFP for the education, the proficiency that you have to have as a certified financial planner, the ethics requirements. Must be a fiduciary. I'll touch on that. But you also want that person focused on taxes, tax planning. And if you're talking about retirement, focused on retirement and how to have an effective retirement. Most financial advisors don't know how to come down the mountain. They can be very good at helping you save and invest, but they don't know how to show you how to draw those funds out and pay for your retirement most effectively. You want a good CPA, and I think your tax preparer should also be a CPA for all the reasons that your financial advisor, financial planner should be a CFP. Efficiency, proficiency, education, ethics, educated, qualified, and specialized. Then you're going to want a good attorney. You're going to want a good attorney for at least your estate plan. I think your estate attorney should be an elder law attorney. I'm not suggesting that you're elderly, but one day you want to be elderly, right? You want to still be here, and you want that person to have the skills and knowledge that you're going to need and know you before that time comes. And depending on your situation, you may need other attorneys, business attorneys, real estate attorneys, whatever your situation is. But you want to put that team together, and you are the center of attention here. They're all working for you, and they're all working together. You see these arrows I made that, it's very cyclical. It goes around, and everybody is talking and working for you. Very, very important. So we talked about your financial advisor. You want educated, qualified, specialized. Your CPA, educated, qualified, specialized. You want a planning-oriented CPA, not somebody who just drives in the rearview mirror, reconciling what you did last year. You want somebody who's going to be part of your tax planning team. And we talked about your attorney as well. Very, very important. You want a good financial plan. If you haven't started it already and you're 5 years from retirement, start it now. Get a true financial plan, not a razor-thin financial plan. I'm meeting with a fellow tomorrow who sent me his financial plan that somebody sent him. It's an impressive document. It's about 95 pages. It says nothing. It absolutely says nothing. It's a really good snapshot of where he is today. It was a lot of good information for me to see where his assets held and what his objectives are, but it is truly not a financial plan. I was talking to a potential candidate for us yesterday, and we were talking about the software we use for financial plan. We use this program called eMoney. We call it Plan Tracker, just to keep things simple. And he was talking about the benefits of the program, and I said, but the platform, the program, doesn't do the planning. It gives us the planners, the ability to do the plan. It doesn't do the plan for you. It just helps us organize the plan. It helps us do some calculations that we manipulate or put in, right? And then it helps us, most importantly, report the financial plan and display or share the financial plan. But it doesn't do the planning. You still need that person, that planner, to work through the nuances of a financial plan. And really, it takes a tremendous amount of time. It's hours and hours and hours for each step of the financial plan. Most financial advisors don't do true financial planning because of the time it takes. It's a significant amount of time. So you want a truly comprehensive financial plan. You want a financial plan that actually says something. You want a financial plan that takes all of the things that we shake out during the process into account. If you're going to need a new kitchen, if you're going to want a new kitchen or a new car, or you got weddings to plan, or if you've got things that you want to do that are going to draw down your savings. And then it helps us calculate where best to draw down those savings at the appropriate times from the appropriate vehicles, from the appropriate tax categories. That can make all the difference in the world. I do training several times a year when I show people that just the way you draw money out of your different buckets, your taxable, tax deferred, tax advantage buckets, it could be millions of dollars over your lifetime difference, depending on just where you draw the funds from. So anyway, the planning is vitally important. The planning tells us how you should be invested, where you should draw those funds from, and how successful your plan is likely to be. So it is. It's very important that it's truly comprehensive. You want to go through items you may not be considering. The cost of care, increased costs of Medicare in certain circumstances, taxation of Social Security. Folks, if you're 60 years old and listening to this, or if you're 55 years old, and I've heard people say, "Wait a minute, my Social Security can be taxed." They never realize that up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can be subject to tax. It's 0, 50, or 80, 85% of the benefit is subject to tax. Well, when your Social Security is taxed, that's less money that you're able to spend, right? Because you're giving some back to the government. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But these are things that people don't realize, and that has to be fleshed out in the financial planning process. We have this thing called IRMA, income-related monthly adjustment amounts. Again, if you're not 65 years old, and if you're not on Medicare, or maybe if you are 65 years old, you haven't even experienced it yet, because it may not hit you until 67. You might have a significant expense that you didn't see coming. Most financial plans don't even talk about that. There are issues that you may not be considering, and you have these things get fleshed out in a true, comprehensive, holistic, whatever you want to call it, financial plan. But unfortunately, most of these financial plans out there are razor thin. Even if they're impressive documents, they can be 200 pages and say nothing. Anyway, so develop and work with somebody who's going to truly develop that comprehensive plan. Review that annually. Between now, so if you're 5 years out from retirement, you should be having 5 iterations of that financial plan. Or at least 4, right? Maybe 5 is that year. But guess what? You're going to do it then. You don't stop then. You continue every year. So if you live another 35 years, how many times are you going to review your financial plan? 35. There's no reason not to. You want to check your beneficiary designations. Make sure things flow the way you want them to flow. You want to make sure your cash flow is set up. There are things that are going to change along the way, and you don't know. You can't see those changes coming unless you have that plan. All right, so that's the recap. Now let's talk about the focus today. The focus today is, if 5 years, if that looks like 60 for you, on top of everything else I just talked about, start looking at your Social Security options. You want to maximize your benefits. Does that mean age 62, age 67, 70, or somewhere in between? So we know that everybody can start electing benefits at age 62. Most folks' retirement ages now, there's still some stragglers that are 66 and change, 66 and 8 months. Most people are getting to see that 66 is your full retirement age. So that's where you get your full benefit without any reduction. You can also work and not have any reduction to your Social Security benefit. And then we all know that if you wait till 70, you get that famous 8% increase every year between 66 and 67, or your full retirement age, and 70. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, we kind of just default to he was a financial planner. We kind of just default to everybody's age 70. And that is not the right answer, because that might be that you're maximizing the amount that you get out of the Social Security, maybe, and it might not be, especially if you're a married person. But there are other things to consider when you're looking at your Social Security options. That's cash flow. Because it might, if you can get $50,000 more out of the Social Security Administration by waiting until age 70, but it's going to be very tight on your cash flow between age 67 to 70. Does that make sense? It's, of course, different for everybody, but you have to take that into account. I've had people who say, I'm going to start taking my Social Security benefits at age 67 because I'm paying tax on my Roth conversions. I'm going to use some of that money to pay my tax. There are mathematical reasons to do things, and there are emotional reasons to do things, and they're equally important. So when you're talking about claiming Social Security benefits, first of all, you need an expert to help you decipher this. These strategies can be so complex. We went as far as we have a consultant who on our team who is one of the top Social Security strategists in the nation. You've all heard me talk about Heather Schreiber before. You can see her bio on our website. You can go to adelbarwealth.com. That's adelbarwealth.com. Look at our team, and you're going to see information about Heather. But Heather became part of our team because I was asking her all the time about Social Security planning, and I met Heather through the EdSlot Master Lead Advisor Group, and I can't say enough good things about that education group for me. That's an education group for me, just like I'm saying you should stay educated, updated. That's what the SLOT group does for me, including answer complex questions I have on a regular basis about tax planning for our clients. But again, Heather's one of the top Social Security strategists in the world. And one day when I was asking her a question about a client, she said, you can just hire me to be part of your team on a retainer basis, and I'll review every scenario you have with clients. And she is built into our team process right now. So I don't know how many decades experience Heather has, but if you only got to talk to her once to know she knows what she's talking about, and she's one of the best out there. So I tell you that because this is complex stuff, and it's not just about looking at how much you can squeeze out of the Social Security Administration. You got to look at cash flow, and you got to look at tax. What's the tax going to be, and how's that going to affect your overall plan? No surprises here, folks, that I'm going to talk about the effect on the overall plan. So if you're 60, if you're 5 years before retirement equals 60, start looking at your Social Security option. Also, if you're within 5 years of age 60, or even 10 years of age 63, I'd say, going back to that 55, and you're planning on Roth conversions, I'm gonna tell you, if you don't know already, everybody knows you have an Uncle Sam, and we pay our taxes to Uncle Sam, all year long. You also have an Aunt Irma. Your Aunt Irma is your income-related monthly adjustment amounts. So I've got a video about that. I'm going to attach to the description here. You can also go to the website, and you can pull down the Medicare planning chart that's going to talk about Irma. It's the gray chart. You go to Education and Resources. You scroll. You open it up. You click on that, and there's a drop down. You go to Slot Corner, and then you scroll down, and you can download tax planning charts and this Medicare planning chart I'm talking about. But first, you want to go to AttleboroughWealth.com, go to Education and Resources. That'll open up a drop-down menu. Go to Slot Corner, and then you can download that information. It doesn't cost you anything. You just have to put your email address in there. But that will tell you exactly what the IRMA brackets are, income-related monthly adjustment amounts. So if you make more money than what the tax code thinks you should, then you've got these cliffs that happen, and these are not gradual increases. You step off a cliff, and then you have to pay sometimes hundreds of dollars more for your Medicare benefits, and that comes right out of your Social Security, or you pay it directly, however you're doing it. But that costs you more in retirement, and those numbers can be significant. So sometimes it makes sense to pay IRMA early, just like it makes sense to pay your tax early when you're doing Roth conversion. And sometimes it doesn't, but it's going to be different for you. But this is something that's an eye-opener for some people. They say, I've never heard of this. Now, if you've been listening to this channel or listening to me for any period of time, you've heard of IRMA. I hope you've heard of IRMA. We talk about it a lot, but that is something that the general population, the general public, is still shocked by. And it can be very expensive to your retirement. So if you're planning on Roth conversions, you're 5 years from retirement, and if that is 60, pay attention to this IRMA, because you might be saying from this, if you're listening to me or watching me and listening to the podcast. Oh, I didn't put my whiteboard back. Well, hey, I'm not 65 yet. IRMA has a 2-year look back. So anything you do from 63 on is going to affect IRMA. That's income-related monthly adjustment amount. And the last thing we're going to talk about is account segmentation. So if you're 5 years from retirement, this is the time. Pay attention to your investments. You're going to want to start laying out your account segmentation. So I've already taken the liberty of drafting out our normal chart about account segmentation. So what the heck is this that I'm showing you? And I'm sorry if you're listening on the podcast or just listening on YouTube, you're going to have to go to the channel for this and just look at this part. So this is going to be under the financial focus, and everything's indexed, or chapters, YouTube calls it. But what you're looking at, is this a normal allocation? Again, we have 3 pillars of investment management that we use. And that is, 1, asset allocation. So everybody knows what asset allocation is, and whether it's well-planned and professionally managed asset allocation or whether it's just a hodgepodge allocation, you have asset allocation, I'm sure. Number 2 is principal protection. You want some portion of your portfolio that can have some growth. We want it to be safe and productive, but we want the worst year you're ever going to experience in that portion of your investment to be 0. So we can have growth, but we don't want to go negative. So that's principal protection. There's a portion that goes into that. And our third for us is account segmentation. And this is what we're talking about here. And as you get closer, and certainly within 5 years, you want to start paying attention to this, because instead of your typical asset allocation looking like this, asset allocation here, well, hey, we could just have a 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks and 40% bonds. And the bonds are going to zig when the stocks zag, or the one's going to offset the other. And how the way we offset the risk of stock is bonds. That's not always the case. And in fact, in 2022, that definitely wasn't the case. Stocks were down significantly. Bonds were down significantly on both sides of it. And when you're drawing money out of your portfolio that's down, you never get a chance to recover that. And folks will tell you that there's a lot of science behind this, the 60-40 mix or whatever mix they come up with. And they use these Monte Carlo simulations and probabilities of success. And we all use all those too in our investment management and our financial planning. But it all comes down to, when you're talking about the scientific tools that we use, it all comes down to trust us. Well, we want you to trust us, and we want you to trust your financial advisor or financial planner, but we also want to be secure in where your funds are coming from during retirement, because the difference between the times when you have volatility that you can just wait it out and retirement is you have to start drawing down that money. So we think that it's better to spin off different portfolios instead of this one big pie that if all of it equals 60-40. We think that it's better to spin off different portfolios, and we identify via the plan how much money you need in this period of time. If your goal is from retirement to the time that you're no longer here, you want your money to last. And then most people say, and whatever's left passes as efficiently into my heirs. And efficiently typically means time and tax. You've heard me say that before. Well, account segmentation says, well, in the first 3 years, you need X number of dollars. We're going to identify that number of dollars in the plan. We actually identify the number of years in the plan too. And we create an account that really today has 0 risk. Can't lose any money. Our stated goal for that account is only 2% growth, but right now we're getting around 5% growth because we just use money markets and short-term treasuries, and interest rates are high right now. Well, that's going to change at some point. But we know the money that you're going to need for the next 3 years, and you're not going to lose money in that. So I can say to you, if that number is $300,000, well, hey, that first $300,000 that we need in the next 3 years, if the market drops 30%, it's not going to phase you. For the next 3 years, we've got more stock allocation. We've got some things to buffer risk around that, but we figure out the amount of money. We figure it out through proper financial planning. Let's say that's another $300,000, and we have that in a specialized account just for that $300,000 that has some more potential for growth, but very little potential for risk, or less potential for risk. And we see this S1, S2. We call those segment 1, segment 2, and they're titled segment 1, segment 2 in your planning software and your investment tracker software that we use, because you have to be able to put your fingers on that. As we go further out, we can get more aggressive, because let's just stick with $300,000. Let's say $300,000 is what you need in each segment. Well, we can be more aggressive as you go out in time, because 7 to 9 years, well, you can handle some market activity there, right? Because you got time to recover. 10 to 13 years, we can have some more stock exposure, and you're likely going to need more stock exposure, because the only reason we invest in stocks isn't out of greed or excitement or to be able to share it with your neighbor how much money you made. It's to stave off inflation, right? Because this isn't going to do it. S1, even at 5%, if we just said, hey, let's put everything in CDs or short-term treasuries or money markets because interest rates are so high right now. Even if you could lock that in for the next 5 years, you're still really not keeping pace with inflation after you pay tax or, maybe if your money's in a Roth, you're making a little bit, but if inflation's at 3%, and the 100-year historical inflation rate, by the way, is 3.5%. But if inflation's at 3%, other things are going to be higher than that average. Anyway, you want some stock exposure because things are going to cost more in the future, and especially medical costs, food costs, all those things. But now when we go out 10 plus years and 14 plus years, folks, you can handle that. So it helps eliminate this worry that happens in the beginning of retirement. In the beginning, usually 5 to 3 years before retirement, and sometimes 3 to 5 years in the first few years of retirement, you're in this worry zone. But if I can say to you, hey, the market's down 30%, I know everybody's really concerned and everybody's upset, but your money is safe and coming right from this S1 account for the next several years. And we know it's not going to go anywhere, and that we can point to that account number that's coming out of 3897, for example. Then it helps eliminate that worry. And as I coach other financial advisors and talk to people around the country, and they say, well, Mark, I understand that, but I do all that. I've got all that you're showing there built into this pie chart right here. But psychologically, that doesn't matter, because if this 60-40 portfolio is both sides of it are down, or even if it's just the stock portion that's down and it's down 30 or 40% of it, really takes a big hit. Psychologically, people are going to be worried. They're going to be scared. And that trust us kind of flies right out the window. Instead, if you can say, well, your next 3 years is coming out of account number that ends in 3897. Your 3 years after that is coming out of account that ends in 3898. And then the account that your next 3 years 7 through 9 are coming out of the account that ends in 3899. People see that and they say, oh, I get it. Now I know where my money's coming from in retirement. Now I know that I can have growth over here and I have protection over here. And I don't have to worry about it. But then we have another thing that happens, and that is FOMO. And that's the other reason you want some stock exposure, because there is this thing called FOMO. And FOMO is the fear of missing out. So I could go into a long discussion about this woman who told me that she never wanted to lose any money. And then right in about February 2020, she said, we've been investing too conservatively. I'm going to pull all my money out and put it in another investment, and I'm going to 100% in the stock market. And the market's been flying, and it's never going to go anywhere else but up. And we all know that the market dropped dramatically after that time. And I know for a fact that she got hit hard and never got back into the market again since then. But you don't want that. You don't want to hit that fear of missing out, and you also want that stock exposure. But the thing is, folks, this is not static. This account segmentation, everything has to cascade down as you spend your money in retirement. And sometimes we move it the other way too. This legacy longevity is we identify the money that you're likely not going to need during your lifetime, but it's there for you during your lifetime, but it's there for you if you want to spend it, if you need to spend it, or what you'll likely pass to your heirs. That's a complex process. I got it. I get that. You want to start paying attention to this and start having this mapped out for you 5 years out, so you know where you're going and how you need to start drifting into this, because there may be things that you have to do. A lot of your money might be in that taxable account, and we have to start chipping down at reasonable capital gains rates and managing the tax efficiency of that portfolio. So start paying attention to account segmentation. And when I'm talking about financial planning, I'm thinking about this. Just let me go back to this for a second. I'm thinking about this person I was talking to yesterday, and this financial planner said, "Yeah, well, we're tax planners." And I said, "Well, tell me more about that." What they do is they do some tax loss harvesting at the end of the year for clients, and that's a very good practice. We do it too, right? You go into accounts and you see if there's losses, and you take those losses, and then you can rebuy the positions if you want, 31 days later, and you kind of bank those losses to use later. Well, that's a method. That's one. That is not tax planning. Tax planning is when you're mapping out Roth conversions, when you're moving people to a much lower tax bracket, potentially in the future, or sometimes zero tax in the future. That is truly tax planning. So when people say tax planning, raise your antenna up and ask exactly what that means, because most companies still have that disclaimer at the bottom of their statements that say, we do not offer tax advice. Folks, taxes are going to be one of the most expensive parts of your retirement, and it has to be part of the plan. All right, so 5 years out, recap, look at everything we talked about in that age 55 video. Start paying attention to your expenses, your investments, your contributions, your tax categories of your investments. Get your team together if it's not already together. And by the way, if you started paying attention to these things, just keep doing it. You're going to get better at it as you go. Get your team together, your CFP, your CPA, your lawyer. Get those people together. Do a true financial plan. Get that financial plan. Truly comprehensive, holistic financial plan. Get it done. Do the work. We have an 8-week process. Go through that 8-week process. Get that done. Review that annually. You're going to have 5 opportunities to really fine-tune that plan before you retire. Isn't that exciting? You can make changes along the way. You can figure out, you're going to have that relationship with that planning group. You're going to be all set and confident. We want you to absolutely have the confidence, be worry-free, to be able to roll right into retirement. If you're 60, start looking at your Social Security options, maximizing benefits. What age are you going to claim? What are the pros and cons of each age? Look at your cash flow when you're looking at these options. Look at tax. If Roth conversions are part of your plan, you may want to do as many Roth conversions as possible prior to age 63. You got to pay attention to that income-related monthly adjustment amount. You got to pay attention to other things that can be triggered. Somebody mentioned the IRMA surcharge as well. Not surcharge, but Jerry, what'd you say? In addition, the IRMA penalties, yes. So there are different things you have to pay attention to. If you're 5 years from retirement, start paying attention to, start learning about, start applying the principles, perhaps, of account segmentation. I mapped that all out over here. I know that's confusing. If you think that is hard to follow, it's the simplest way I can put it, folks. Just imagine trying to do it yourself. Because that is, I always say, that's like plowing the field with the ox. We do not have a simple software where we hit a button and say, okay, this is all done. It all has to be mapped out. It all has to be reviewed. And then you have all the components of the investment. So I'd love to talk to you about the investment process. And there's plenty of videos out there. And we've got a client-only video that I'd be happy to share with you if you want to send an email to questions@attleborowealth.com. That's questions@attleborowealth.com. That talks more about our investment process. And I think that's it for today. So we went a little over. It's 11:10, but that's okay because it's not the Financial 15 anymore. It's the Financial Focus. Folks, I had a lot of fun today. I hope you benefited from this webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you know where to reach us, but I'm going to tell you again. It's questions@attleborowealth.com. It's questions@attleborowealth.com. If you are a client, you have a whole different email. Take advantage of that one. You can always reach us there too, but you got your own email. That's special for you. You can check us out on the website at attleborowealth.com. Also our YouTube channel. If you're not already, I would love a subscribe, like, and notification. And if you need to schedule time with us, you can do so on our website. Oh, let me go back, attleborowealth.com. You can go to Contact Us, and there is a discovery meeting that you can schedule. Or if you can't find a time that works for you, reach out to us at questions@attleborowealth.com. That's questions@attleborowealth.com. And we'll find a time that works for you. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next week. Take care.